morning. Some activity still at the summit of Kīlauea and along the fault of Kīlauea, but it is dwindling after magma was flowing into the area.
Kīlauea has long been known to be a marvelous natural laboratory for the study of volcanoes because it is frequently active.
In this video, we break open the ground beneath Hawaii's feet to reveal a transformation that's happening right now. One that could rewrite everything you thought you knew about one of Earth's most famous volcanoes. The USGS has released an update that's already generating discussion among geologists and locals alike. The Kīlauea Fault Zone, an often overlooked feature on Kīlauea's southern flank, is active once again, not just inching, rising and splitting open the land with the kind of persistent force that quietly reshapes islands. Dull cracks in lonely lava fields? Think again. This isn't just slow tectonics. It's the cumulative work of uplift and movement, hoisting and shifting ancient landscapes. But what's really going on beneath the surface? Is this just the routine flexing of the Earth, or a prelude to something more dramatic? Why is a set of cracks, long ignored by most, now drawing the focused gaze of volcano watchers from around the world? We'll journey into the restless heart of Kīlauea, where subterranean magma can deform ridges, new communities form over moving ground, and everyone wonders, what's next for Hawaii? If you thought volcanic eruptions were the island's only danger, think again. Today, we explore the overlooked story of Hawaii's rising land, embodied by the complex Kīlauea fault system and the scientific push to read its unfolding signals. Could these new ground movements signal a future evolution of the Big Island? And what do they mean for the people and places that have long called this landscape home? Get ready. The ground beneath your screen is, quite literally, shifting. The Kīlauea fault system, Hawaii's silent giant. Hidden among the emerald slopes and blackened flows of Kīlauea is a story that most visitors, snapping pictures at the rim of Halema or even seasoned geologists, may overlook. While attention centers on summit eruptions and bubbling craters, the greater story of ongoing geologic change unfolds just a few miles south in the broad and largely unsung domain of the Kīlauea fault system. The Kīlauea is not a single crack, but a widespread network of ground ruptures, faults, and fissures that run laterally across the volcano's southern flank. Imagine vast linear troughs, some subtle, only visible if you know what to look for, others wide enough to stand in, their shadowy depths hosting pockets of green amid black lava. Over centuries, these faults have systematically offset the spreading fields of solidified lava, displacing flows by as much as 15 meters, or nearly 50 feet. Visualize ancient rivers of rock, suddenly misaligned, one side thrust higher than the other, as if a stone staircase has formed where once was a level plain. Long relegated to the margins of geologic reports, the Kīlauea faults have often been considered minor compared to Kīlauea's headline eruptions. Recent studies and monitoring, however, reveal that the Kīlauea is not a relic, but an active, ever-shifting landscape. When the USGS notes increased ground movement in this area, it means Hawaii is experiencing visible, sometimes measurable, deformation, evidence that island building is far from over. How significant is this process? While much of the movement is gradual, history and mapping reveal episodes in which the ground rises or slips by several feet, leaving abrupt scarps, offset trails, and split stone walls. These are not the marks of forgotten disasters, but part of a process that has quietly but persistently shaped Hawaii's landscape for centuries, long before human memory began recording its events. June 3rd, 2024, the eruption that never was. History often remembers the moments of spectacle, but sometimes it's the absences, the pauses, that leave the deepest impression. On June 3rd, 2024, seismic activity near Kīlauea's summit signaled that an eruption was beginning on its southwest flank. Scientists, residents, and volcano enthusiasts braced for another dramatic episode. For days, minor lava flows and low-level effusion played out in Halema, the heart of modern Kīlauea activity. Yet, as quickly as it surfaced, the eruption subsided. Just 48 hours after the start, activity paused, and according to the USGS Hawaiian Volcano Observatory, further eruptive action looked unlikely. An anticipated episode of fire and light became a study in restraint. The volcano slipped into a deep calm, the only evidence of change being the lingering warmth in the crater and subtle signals in the earth. This pause, however, was not the end of the story. When volcanic activity at the summit wanes abruptly after seismic rumblings, attention turns elsewhere, sometimes to the flanks of the volcano, sometimes to lurking faults. In the days following June 3rd, instruments and satellite data began to pick up subtle changes in the Kīlauea zone, signs of uplift, formation, and widening of ground cracks, and clusters of micro-earthquakes. The energy that might otherwise have vented in an eruption appeared to be dispersing laterally and vertically, shifting the ground itself. Could it be that, in the lulls between eruptions, the true story of Hawaii's transformation is written not in fountains of lava, but in the silent, steady heaving of the land itself? For geologists, the June 2024 pause was a reminder that Kīlauea's hazards are not always explosive. Sometimes they are tectonic, broad, and subtle. A network of cracks stitched by ancient catastrophe. To a casual observer, the Kīlauea cracks might be mistaken for unlucky accidents in the landscape, a few lines marking the otherwise sprawling lava plains. But their distribution and orientation tell a story of powerful forces at work, stretching for kilometers across Kīlauea's lower slopes. The Kīlauea faults form a broad swath, some fissures barely a shadow, others trenches with near vertical walls. The orientation of these faults links Kīlauea's eastern and southwestern rift zones, forming a lateral bridge that accommodates the volcano's internal stretching and sliding. Stresses generated by magma accumulation and movement are unevenly distributed across the volcano's body. The Kīlauea faults allow some of that pent-up energy to be released horizontally and vertically. Over centuries, the cumulative effect has been to literally step portions of the landscape upward by as much as 15 meters, while tearing through flows that had remained joined for centuries. Visualize how dramatic this process can be. A seamless landscape then, over years, or within a single event, offset by a ridge you can walk along, with each edge telling a different chapter of eruption and displacement. Old footpaths and boundaries crisscross these gaps. Ferns nestle in the shadows of fault walls. Survey lines, once straight, are jogged by ground cracks that mark the restless work of centuries. Local residents and traditional narratives speak of these fractures as living wounds, physical reminders that the island is young, raw, and unsteady. Recent mapping using GPS and satellite radar has confirmed what oral tradition and old survey maps suggest. The Kīlauea faults are dynamic, sometimes moving in minuscule increments, other times in sudden leaps. It's easy to be lulled by a sense of permanence, but on the southern flanks of Kīlauea, the evidence is all around. Solid ground can shift, rearrange, and redraw itself, a humbling display of nature's patience and power. From tectonic wounds to rippling uplift, making sense of the movement, while images of flying lava and fiery fountains capture the public imagination, much of Hawaii's real geological transformation is quieter, but no less powerful. The most dramatic changes often happen not as eruptions, but as the surface flexes and lifts in response to activity deep below. The Kīlauea faults demonstrate this in textbook fashion, showing how quiet, landscape-altering tectonic events can rewrite the land year by year. Recent data from the USGS and collaborating research teams illustrate a period of renewed vertical movement across the Kīlauea in 2024. Satellite imagery and high-precision GPS stations have tracked uplift centimeters in mere weeks, while field teams document waxing and waning of ground cracks in the lava fields. This combined monitoring effort has made it clear Kīlauea's southern flank is not just being rent apart, but in places heaved upward. Walk across the zone and you'll find evidence from centuries past. Ancient lava flows interrupted by sharp ridges, as if the island's skin simply shrugged itself apart. These steps are preserved in hardened basalt, markers of moments when the Earth took a dramatic leap. The largest documented ground offsets have measured up to 15 meters, enough to create visible escarpments and vertical faces in the landscape. What drives this power? Unlike the sudden violence of a major eruption, the process is often incremental, steady accumulation, pressure building in deep magma stores, eventually causing the overlying rock to rise or slip. The effects on infrastructure and ecosystems can be significant. Highways may need realignment, drainage channels are rerouted, even native plant species take root in the cool, shaded alcoves created by newly opened cracks. Modern surveys, sometimes involving teams from the University of Hawaii at Hilo and the Hawaiian Volcano Observatory, return repeatedly to measure and map fresh cracks, compare new Uplift with older records, and integrate these findings into updated hazard maps. Each measurement tells a story. Surfaces, once even, are now offset, and places mapped as stable a generation ago are slowly transforming. Seismic whispers, earthquakes, and the language of shifting faults. Integral to understanding the island's ongoing transformation are the earthquakes that ripple through its foundations. On June 6, 2025, a magnitude 2.2 earthquake occurred in the North Pacific, near the island of Hawaii's shores. A light tremor, but one of many that marked the continuing adjustment of the land. Weeks before that, on May 20th, a magnitude 3.6 earthquake struck near Hilo, offering another sign of shifting stresses. While these events rarely cause significant damage, their cumulative significance is vast. Each quake, large or small, represents a moment when built-up tension within the faults and underlying rock breaks free, resetting the subterranean balance. Along the Koa, such events can manifest as clusters, so-called seismic swarms, often correlated with observed ground movement and uplift. Scientists at the Hawaiian Volcano Observatory track these tremors meticulously, cross-referencing them with changes seen in surface deformation. Their records show that clusters of seismic activity often precede or accompany visible shifts, such as the widening or formation of cracks along the fault system. In the Kauai zone, small earthquakes serve as harbingers, quiet, persistent signals that the land is preparing for change, whether through steady uplift or sudden motion. For residents of surrounding districts, seismicity is a familiar part of life. While most events are too minor to disrupt daily routines, there are times when cracks split a road or a boundary marker disappears beneath a new offset. In some places, old survey markers or fence lines have become non-linear as the ground itself has moved beneath them. Are these minor earthquakes omens of something bigger? Seismologists are cautious not to forecast dramatic events without supporting evidence, but each motion is a note in the ongoing symphony of island building. The future of Hawaii may ride on the rhythm of these seismic whispers. Kahuku villages, building futures on shifting ground. As geologists decipher the Kauai's dynamic signals, planners and developers are wrestling with an age-old question: how to build sustainably atop a restless land. In the Kau district, roughly 7 miles from Kīlauea's shifting southern margin, the proposed Kahuku Villages project takes center stage. A multi-use development planning homes, commerce, and open space within sight of past and present ground movement. What does it mean to lay down foundations in a place marked by centuries of land offset? Engineering reports and geological surveys become central to the planning. Every mapped crack, every ridge, every anomaly in the underlying rock is scrutinized for potential risk. Urban planners are advised by consulting geologists who highlight historic offsets up to 15 meters as a stark reminder that the ground is not static. For future residents, the land beneath their feet is both a legacy of ancient lava flows and the product of steady, sometimes sudden, movement along the faults. The development plan incorporates flexibility. Roads and buildings are sited with respect to mapped fault traces. Construction codes may reflect the threat not only from wind and rain, but from the potential for sudden ground shifts. In these projects, Hawaii's natural volatility is recognized not as a barrier, but a condition of life, a requirement to adapt, to build with awareness of history's imprint and nature's unpredictability. Formerly minor lands within the Koa are reimagined as sites for new beginnings, opportunities for communities to grow side by side with the story of ongoing geologic change. The lessons encoded in the land, visible in the contorted lines of offset lava, in cracks that trace old maps, in stories passed down through generations, offer a blueprint for building communities that are both resilient and responsive. The Kauai Zone, once obscure, now stands as a living laboratory for adaptation. Human and scientific eyes on a changing land. The story of the Kauai's recent stirrings is more than a scientific narrative. It is lived experience, woven into the lives of residents, students, and professionals who call Kīlauea's southern slopes their home and their work. On February 3rd, teams from the University of Hawaii at Hilo joined Hawaiian Volcano Observatory scientists in a collaborative ground survey. The goal: to map cracks, measure shifting ground, and compare newly collected data with decades of records and stories. Equipped with GPS units and seismic monitors, students and researchers fanned out across the lava fields. Each reading, no matter how small, a fraction of an inch here, a tilt in a stone fence there, became part of an accumulated record, showing how the landscape is evolving year by year. In the process, science and local memory merge. Stories of sudden land shifts handed down by elders are compared line by line with the latest field measurements, and the changes are often found to match. The intersection of modern technology with its global satellite networks and digital mapping and centuries of lived experience in the region provides a powerful lens through which to read Hawaii's geologic story. Every new crack logged, every uplift measured, ties a thread between past upheaval and future change. The work may be incremental, but it is crucial. Understanding the pace and placement of the Kauai's movement is key to forecasting future hazards, planning infrastructure, and preserving cultural legacy. For young scientists and local observers alike, the Koa is no longer a background feature. It is a living, dynamic landscape, one that invites curiosity, demands respect, and calls for readiness in the face of an ever-shifting ground. Echoes beneath the lava lake, Halema, and the unseen pulse. Amid all this ground movement, it's easy to be captivated by the drama of Halema, the persistent center of activity at Kīlauea's summit. From July through December 2022, the world watched low-level lava effusions in the crater as visitors gathered to witness Hawaiian geology in slow-motion action. The surface glowed, sulfurous clouds drifted upward, and the boundaries of the molten lake seemed fixed, for a moment, in tranquil beauty. But nature's calm is not always what it seems. Beneath the surface, stresses and flows persist. When the June 2024 eruption paused, the transition of pressure and motion beneath the volcano was clear. Rather than expressing itself through summit eruptions, the internal force of Kīlauea began to reveal itself through deformation and movement along the Kauai. The visible surface, a cooling lake at Halema, masked the broader pulse of the volcano's engine. The link between summit activity and southern flank deformation is well recognized among scientists. When summit eruptions decrease, stress can migrate, refocusing tensions along features like the Kauai. Even as tourists photograph the stillness of the crater lake, the more consequential, if less showy, process of uplift and fault movement may be playing out unseen just kilometers away. The next time you stand at the summit, overlook, remember, the greatest show may be unfolding beneath your feet, in ground that flexes upward without warning, in cracks carving new patterns into Hawaii's youngest lava. A fault unveiled, a future unwritten. With confirmation of renewed Kauai fault movement and measurable uplift, Hawaii's landscape is again in the international scientific spotlight. Authorities consult updated hazard maps, geologists debate the pace and possible implications, and residents reflect on the meaning and challenge of living at the front lines of creation itself. These uplifts and cracks are not historical oddities. They've shaped landforms still visible today, rerouted old trails, reshaped drainage, and forced a constant reevaluation of what it means for a landscape to endure. The Big Island is not a monument frozen in volcanic stone, but a continually forming work in progress, pushed and pulled, reworked and reimagined, sometimes gently, sometimes violently, every day since its birth. As you watch this, consider how many of Hawaii's time-worn footpaths have disappeared when the ground shifted overnight. How many future rivers will meander along new valleys carved by uplift or faulting? When new communities rise on the flanks of Kīlauea, how will they endure the ground's tireless creativity? The foundation of life here is adaptability, the knowledge that the land's unfinished story is written in every ripple and every ridge. The ground is moving right now. Hawaii's past and present are inscribed in uplift, in cracks, in the measured pulses of its living faults. If you listen and watch closely enough, you may even sense the island's slow, powerful breath beneath your feet. Which part of Hawaii's living landscape most surprised you? Share your story in the comments. We'd love to hear your perspective. If this journey through Hawaii's hidden geologic drama opened your eyes, hit like and share with someone you know who loves exploring the wonders of nature. The next time you're on the island, pause and look down, because here, the ground writes history in real time. Stay curious, stay watchful, and remember, Hawaii is still becoming.